Welcome back to episode 2 of our All Things 4-H Camp episode. Travis Taylor from Colorado had to bounce out, but remaining in the conversation include NAE4-HYDP President Craig Presar, Kim Fry from Wyoming, Tiana Garcia from Colorado, and Allen Taggart from Oregon. Enjoy part 2 of All Things 4-H Camp.
So what are some of the challenges that you all have had in recent years with your camping programs? There's always challenges.
You know, one that Goshen County 4-H Camp in Wyoming has not had. One, we were not COVID shut down. So not a challenge. COVID, what? 2, we haven't had homesickness in like 9 years, I think. I was counting this the other day. The last young person that had homesickness at my 4-H camp is now the intern. So she's a sophomore in college. So that's how long it's been since I've had homesickness. And I was just razzing her about that last week. Is that she's not going to upset my angles or my statistics on this topic.
So, Megan, is this going to be where you show us now all your ways?
I'm here to tell you everything I know. I inherited from West Virginia. I know it. It came via Ohio, who stole it from West Virginia.
And that is why the West is the best.
That's
Virginia.
Right. West Virginia is best Virginia. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. We have worked hard over the years camping is what we do. When we go to national conferences, we are always sit in awe with folks when they talk about all the competitions and the judging and sewing camps and sewing clubs and things. We do camp and we do that really, really well. And we're jealous of those programs that offer those other things as well. We're working on those. But yeah. I think one of the challenges we've found, other than funding, just the cost of everything has doubled in the last 5 years. One of the things that I'm particularly working on is we're doing a review of all the songs that we sing at West Virginia 4-H Camp. And we're looking at them through a DEI lens, diversity, equity, inclusion. And we're having to make some tough decisions about some things we sing at camp. I'm probably one of the least liked people in West Virginia 4-H right now because people know that Greg's going to come and take these songs away from us. And that's not what we're doing. We're not trying to take songs away. We're just trying to look and make sure that all of the songs we sing, and we've identified somewhere in the neighborhood of 280 different songs that could potentially be sung that would be familiar enough for us to sing. And that includes some old favorites, but there are songs that have a little bit more of have sketchy backgrounds, have come through from minstrel shows, and we might not think of them as being particularly inappropriate or particularly offensive, but there are communities in the country, and there are communities in our world and amongst our 4-Hers who do find those songs offensive or uncomfortable. And so we're just in the early process. As a matter of fact, when I get off this Zoom call, we have another committee meeting about that tonight, where we're going to recommend our first 9 removals from the catalog. And just songs that we know we shouldn't be singing. We don't think we should be singing anymore because they're overtly problematic or just have a problematic past that people may remember and be uncomfortable singing. So that's our hot topic this year. That's been a challenge for us, is making sure that we're welcoming. We truly are welcoming and comfortable and inviting to everyone. And that's not always easy, and that's not always comfortable. So,
yeah, that sounds familiar. We had similar complaint this last year and had to remove the Pink Pajamas song, if you all know that one. And then also
silk
remove
pajamas, Kim. Silk pajamas, Kim.
No, we call it pink pajamas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Kim, that didn't even make our top 10.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
We kicked that one down the road a little bit to deal with down the road later. But
Yeah. And then we also have a long standing prank of stealing underwear. And this last year, I had to tell the counselors, like, we can't be doing this anymore.
Yeah.
This is something that we just can't do. It makes you all uncomfortable. It makes the adults uncomfortable. It makes the kids uncomfortable. We've got to stop it. And I had adults upset about it, but it's like, let's be realistic here and think about, is this the proper thing to have happening or not?
Yeah. Well, Kim, that brings up a good point. We're discovering that it's not the kids so much that are upset about not being able to sing those songs. Frankly, the kids are young enough. If we just don't lead them, they'll forget about them, but it's the parents and the volunteers and the adults that have gone through the program. And I'll be very honest. There are songs I would never have dreamed. I've been working on the railroad, has a racist past. Dinah, someone's in the kitchen with Dinah strumming on the old banjo. We learned that the name Dinah was just a stock name for Black women who worked in the kitchen. So you wouldn't change it. Dinah is to Black women as Sambo was to Black men. And you wouldn't say Sambo, someone's in the kitchen with Sambo, so we shouldn't be singing someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. And I will tell you that I was horrified to learn that. That's a song that my dad sang to me every night at bedtime. It's a song we sang all the time to my kids at bedtime. But now that I know, it wasn't done with any intent, harmful intent. But now that I know, and now that we're aware, we need to make that change. And that's the position we're coming from. Just because it isn't problematic for us doesn't mean we should be singing it. And just because we were singing it doesn't make us bad people and doesn't make us overtly racist or bigoted or whatever, or misogynistic in some other songs cases. But it has that history. And now that we know, we need to make better decisions about what we're singing. So
when you know better, do better. That's what Maya Angelou said.
I learned that from Ohio.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah, I think it was. I remember that when Ohio went through a similar process, and it was, it was painful for them. It was painful.
It's very painful because there are some songs that are very near and dear to us that we're having to really take a long, hard look at. And it's been interesting because I'm learning the history of the songs, but sometimes the history you learn is not always just the history you want to see. So.
Well, gosh, I hope Princess Pat is safe because my kids wouldn't know what to do without Princess Pat.
That one seems to be just fine.
What about Baby Shark?
Please find something wrong with that, Craig.
Then there are those songs that, yes, we want to find reasons not to sing. We looked long and hard at Baby Shark. And we just can't do it. So that doesn't mean we need to sing it. We have to sing it. It's just, So
that's such a good conversation to have, like, because that's I'm actually here in Oregon, like that's something that a lot of people have seen that we need to update our songbook. So maybe whatever Ohio has done, what West Virginia is now doing, perhaps that's a bigger nationwide thing of, hey, this is what we found because.
We're discovering that we're going to have lots of opportunities to share at workshops. It's been a big process, and other states have heard that we're doing this and have called us and said, "Let us know what you come up with and how you do it." We'll be talking about this at national meetings and at ACA, at American Camp Association conferences and things like that. We're using Jackie Breaker, who is a big part of the American Camp Association, but she's written a number of books on leading group songs, and she's helping us through this process. So you'll see articles about it in American Camp Association magazine and stuff like that. But it's It's a tough project, but it's absolutely worth doing, and it's time to do it. Yeah.
Especially when you're so steeped in it also, too. Like West Virginia 4-H and West Virginia 4-H camp have been doing it forever, literally forever. Whereas I think I feel as though Megan in Goshen County gets a little bit of latitude because we've only been doing it for as long as Megan's been here. So, and 9 times out of 10, when we don't sing a song, it's because I've forgotten the words. And that's what the kids assume. So even if it's a song that is, as you had mentioned, maybe not a song we need to be singing these days, the kids don't even know. They just go, Megan just forgot all the words, and we move on, and it's fine.
I think that's a good reminder to when you're doing camps, and I think about this about our state camps, it's okay to kind of overview everything and see what do we need to freshen up, or what are things that we need to change because of whatever reason. And I mean, I think the songs and looking at them as far as DEI is a good thing, but it's also a reminder of, hey, if we want to keep this camp sustainable and get kids to continue to coming, what are other things that we need to look at and change and freshen up, and make new and kind of go from there. And I think sometimes we forget, just because we're in the mindset of we're planning camp, we got to get these things done. You kind of forget to look at, hey, what could we do to maybe make things a little more exciting for these kids too?
So one longstanding rule that we just finally addressed in Colorado, and I'm betting this was probably a rule when you were a state officer too, Tiana, but it was that if you were asked to dance, that you could not say no the first time. And so that one was kind of called into question in the last few years. And so it's not a rule anymore, but it had been a rule for the state officers when they were kids going to camp. And so it was a little bit hard for them to remember that they couldn't tell the kids, oh, there's this rule for the dance tonight. So it took a little bit of transition time there, but.
Yes, that was a rule. And I should have paid a little better attention this weekend at Youth Fest, and I haven't. Another rule that I think probably needs reassessed, and at least when I was a state officer, we always just explained that boys are blue, girls are pink, no purple, which, I mean, I think in the sense of you don't need to be doing extracurricular activities at a 4-H camp is a rule that should be in place. But to be describing it as that is something that also needs to be reassessed as far as how do we explain those things, and just being mindful of everyone, But I think there are a lot of those things that we just, like you said, that's how it was when I went to camp. And then when I was a state officer, that's just what you did, is you said, hey, these are the rules and here they are. But just making those changes so everyone is, feeling comfortable and included at camp is important. And I think that's a good thing that Craig brought up as things that we should all kind of remember. And I know that kind of goes into one of the challenges we talked about as far as our Project Runway camp goes. We advertise that it's for everybody ages 8 to 18. And I think the Project Runway, if kids have ever watched the show Project Runway, they know that it's open, anybody can be kind of a designer and anyone can be into fashion. We haven't had any boys sign up. All of our attendees for the past 2 years have been young ladies, but we were talking this year when we went to this thrift store, the boys would have so much fun going to a thrift store and just picking out, an outfit. And I think they would be the ones that would step outside of their comfort zone and try something funny or funky. But just a challenge that we kind of need to work on is getting those boys to understand, hey, this is not just for girls. It's not just about, going and shopping for a dress or picking something out to model at the fashion review. This is for everybody. Come learn about shopping and finding your personal style. Because I think that's something that, young men struggle with too, is finding their personal style and being comfortable with who they are. So that's kind of, what that camp is about. But just finding a way to advertise and get those those boys to come as well, because that's the focus of the camp, not just necessarily modeling and playing dress up. And I think that's kind of one area that we need to work on. So that's a challenge that we've seen at that camp, aside from other logistical or funding challenges as well. So if you have ideas of how do we encourage boys to go shopping, please send them our way.
I'll jump in and say a thing that is in my experience with camp, and I feel like we've been a good job doing our best, but non-binary and transgender youth, when we have a parent signing their kid up as one gender, and then the youth themselves appear at camp and say, nope, this is my name and this is my gender, and making sure that we are doing the best practices to, one, help that youth feel like they are welcomed and can fully have the camp experience and it's a positive camp experience. And make sure, secondly, that our counselors are trained on how to make sure that they are welcomed as well. Something that in Oregon 4-H that we've recently that we're actually unique, because outdoor school is a huge thing in Oregon as well, where 5th, 6th graders have an outdoor education experience through their school district, is what are called non-gendered cabins, to have not just another place. And it's not that every camp facility can do that, and that's one solution that's currently being explored, and making sure that it is for youth who are non-binary or transgender. But at the end of the day, camp is for every kid, and funding files into that too, of like, we want to make sure every kid can have an opportunity to go camping, have an overnight camp experience if they want to, if the family wants them to. But that's something I think is a continual conversation, and I personally want my camp counselors to be equipped to be able to help all youth in those situations, because it's something that that exists, and those kids are out there. They need to have that experience as well.
Something that I have found very, very cool is in one of our counties, Boulder County here in Colorado, a lot of we've been working towards, better inclusivity for a long time, but they had he's actually a state officer, but he stepped up and was like, there's some wording in like our bylaws and things that we don't even think about that isn't very inclusive. And he was like, as a kid, the driving force behind, and things happened. Like once he brought that up as a 4-H member, things happened. So I think it's really important for those kids to be equipped, because I think they can really be some of the most impactful force behind making our events and everything more inclusive.
And I would add on to that too, that we've mentioned some really fantastic resources that already exist within our extension partnerships. And one of those is the American Camp Association. And I think they have a conference every other year. And also coming up in April, the PYD Virtual Academy is on camp experiences. And that's at the end of April. So what a great opportunity to explore more of these topics and more of these conversations from the comfort of your own home or sofa or office chair. And those are some really, really in-depth and impactful conversations that are available to everyone, even if you're not in the West. Anyone can do those.
So thinking, we'll just segue into our last question there with impact. So what are some of the benefits and impacts that your program has seen, whether it's counselors or participants, you?
So here at our county camp, one thing that I've noticed over the past couple years is just a different set of teams, and in an amazing way. So I talked about the prank and having to switch the prank up. And now as that camp counselor group, they're talking about what pranks can we do that's for the younger kids, and ways that they are being more impactful to the younger kids. Whereas before, when I first started, it was, let's chase people around with a mouse we caught in the lodge. So just their framework, which was hilarious and scary for me. But just the impact of these teens and how their brains have switched in the camping mode and their development just as a whole has just been amazingly impactful the past couple years. And I think COVID and our style of changing things has all been resolved because of that.
I think it's, oops, I muted myself, sorry. I think it's transformational all the way around. I appreciate now, when I started here, it was a very different camp program than what I've built it. And I built it in partnership with our teen leaders, which I think something I'm pretty proud of, is I had a vision of what my and this is selfish of me, here's what my 4-H camp experience looked like. And I loved it. And so let's take some elements of that and mold it here into Goshen County in the West. And the kids took to it really well, the teenagers at the time, who are now all volunteers now. So that's great. And they all come back to camp, which is even cooler, is that we've made that impact, is that one day, by golly, I'm going to get this camp to self-sustain like West Virginia on the backs of volunteers. I don't know. I love it too much, though, so I don't know that they'd get rid of me completely. But they made the changes. The teenagers at the time made the changes, made the decisions, and now we get into the habit of having conversations about, are we doing this because it's tradition, or is it because we're lazy and we don't want to change it? We can't think of anything more creative and clever. And finally being in a space where that's a conversation rather than pushing like to think outside the box. Now we have to think outside the box again over what we're stuck on. So it's transformational for the teenagers. It's transformational for the young people that get to come and play with us for a time. And the bonds between the younger kids and the older kids, I love to watch those. I love to bond myself, selfishly, with those older kids too, and those younger kids as well. And I think it's just transformational for everybody. It feels as though, because we are steeped in heavy competition and heavy contesting, it's nice to see those kids get together, and that's not even a care on their radar. They're not even thinking about the show ring. They're not thinking about judging. They're so not even thinking about that. And it's the one place where we just get to play and learn together. The best part of any summer.
So that's something I forgot to mention. Yes, Megan, absolutely. I had a parent mention to me just this last year, and I've been running our camp for a long time. And she said by sending her kid to camp the first year, he then knew people in the 4-H program for the rest of the year. And it just helped him to make those connections and feel more like a 4-H member for the rest of the year. And so just some little things like that as a result from camp are just amazing to the whole program of 4-H.
I will say, Kim, I'm gonna echo that a little bit. With our state camps, it's not we bring in kids from all across the state. We out of the 55 counties, we'll generally have 45 of those counties represented at each one of those weeks. At some point during the summer, every county is represented in one of those 3 weeks. The saying goes with West Virginia 4-H, if you go to state camps and you take advantage of meeting everybody and sharing with everybody, you can break down anywhere in the state of West Virginia, and you got somebody who will come help pull you out of a ditch. We sent my son off to northern Indiana, Western. He went to Valparaiso University right outside Chicago, and which is 9 hours away, and he's got a mommy that doesn't necessarily relish the fact that her son is living 9 hours away. And she was actually able to sit down on a map and chart out a path all the way to Western Illinois. There was never there was always somebody within 20 minutes of where, if he was driving out there and broke down in Western Ohio, we knew that there was someone that we remembered from 4-H camp over the years that we could call and say, "Hey, Charlie needs help," and that's a really neat feeling. So there are those connections made, and yeah, that's always a big success in my book, I think. So
I think for us, just to touch on what's already been said with our smaller camps, they are making those connections. And in our area, our district, we do a lot of things together, just because with the amount of kids we have and sharing those responsibilities across the area agents, it's easier to do things kind of as a district rather than just within our county. But by going to Cookie Camp or to Project Runway, especially those kids that are going, kind of at that 8-9-year-old age, they've already met friends that then they're carrying on through all the other district activities. So they want to do those activities because, oh, we know so-and-so from the other county. Just like one of my kids, when we were talking about signing up for our district retreat, the first question out of her mouth is, well, is my friend from Eads going to be there? And I'm like, yes, she will be. So then they're more apt to sign up and do other things and other activities because they've already met those kids. And we kind of talked about it, but just getting that overnight experience out of the way, so then they're not scared to go to other bigger camps or activities because we've been away from home. We've done a 4-H trip. It's awesome. So we're hooked. I think that's been a good impact. And then aside from kind of the camp impact, Project Runway is a little more project specific focused. Cookie Camp we never really talk about. These are projects you can do in 4-H. We just go do our thing. But they've been exposed to those things that they can pursue in other ways through 4-H, whether it be a project or a competition. And they're also life skills that they're carrying outside of 4-H. As far as like cooking, kitchen safety, they feel safe doing those things at home. Our Project Runway, we've seen a lot of the participants, they feel more confident in themselves, especially the age group that we have come, that's that middle school age range where they're already feeling so many different things and they don't really have a lot of confidence in themselves. Kind of helps them get their feet under them a little bit and gain that confidence. So I think there's just a variety of impacts, and like Megan talked about, that transformation, things that stick with them through life that they're not even really realizing they're gaining those life skills at the time. So
I like that what you said, Tiana. It reminded me of I had taken some kids on some national judging trips and some traveling judging team stuff, and it was interesting to me the difference of the kids. So of the 4 that were on the trip with me, 3 had gone to 4-H camp and 1 had not, and it was real obvious that there was some things missing in her development as a result of not participating in those experiences. So she didn't know how to be a roommate. She didn't know how to clean up after herself. She didn't know how to budget her time getting ready in the morning. She didn't know how to budget her time getting ready at night. She didn't, some of those things that we think about abstractly, she was not with us on those things, and the others sure were, and they knew that mealtime is mealtime, and when we say we're leaving at this time, we'd better be there a little ahead of time. And it was interesting because none of the kids could put their finger on what the deal was. They just knew that this person was constantly late and missing the boat and missing the memos. So I just thought that was a really excellent point you brought up, is we're teaching them and they don't even know that we're teaching them how to be resourceful, how to be responsible. It's the perfect lab for that, as Allen would say.
Yes, and I think reflecting on my experience as a 4-H member and a state officer and having done those things, the things that 4-H teaches you that you don't like I said, you don't even realize you're really learning them until you're out in the real world on your own, not at a 4-H thing. And you're like, if it weren't for 4-H, 4-H camps, all of those experiences, you would not have that experience. And I think sometimes camps aside, I mean, it ties to camp as well, but people, often ask, like, well, what's the benefit of being in 4-H over something else? Come look at 4-Hers versus kids that aren't in 4-H, and you'll quickly see the benefit of letting your kid be in the program.
That is a beautiful point. We rent our facility here in where we go to 4-H camp, and so the other weeks of the summer, it's a Christian-based residential camp. So they have cabins, they have the whole bit, and their own staff, are permitted to leave when 4-H camp comes in, and most of their staff likes to stick around with 4-H because we tend to not have the discipline problems. We tend to not have some of the other problems and issues that they have throughout the rest of the summer, because 4-H members, 4-Hers, are just built different. Good point.
Any last words?
Yeah, I would agree with everything that has been said. I think that 4-H camp, or just any outdoor education experience, has the ability to draw out a whole new experience for kids, where they are removed from their regular school or home environment. They can try on new, not a new personality, but they can try out new things that they have otherwise never touched a bow and arrow or canoe, or did a bead craft, or done leather craft, or took a hike in the woods and they had to feel a bark on a tree and they had to like be animal scat on the ground, like those types of fully immersive, engaging all the senses at one time. And there's so much research behind how that can improve a child's life. And so I just am fully passionate about getting more youth outdoors. There's a famous book called The Last Child in the Woods that I highly recommend anyone to read, just about how, as an American culture, we've created a fear around the outdoors. And it's even more so for people of color who feel like they don't feel safe outdoors. And 4-H has an opportunity to provide that safe opportunity for all youth to participate in a transformative experience.
I listened to the news last night and heard a report, a statistic that's post-COVID students, young people, are spending 17 minutes less per day doing physical activity. And they are tying that directly back to COVID and e-learning and online learning. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh, well, come to 4-H camp, because that's where we're going to pick it up. We're going to go out and hike, and my goodness, we're going to spend the day at the lake, and we're zip lining, and we're throwing tomahawks, and we're trying to find, capture the flag. We lost the flag. So there's all kinds of opportunities if parents would just trust us with their kids.
I think from an educator standpoint, just if you haven't done a camp before, it seems big and scary. I know when we started Cookie Camp, there were a lot of, what about this, or who's doing that? Just do it, because odds are you're going to survive. You're going to make it through just fine. And the next one will be easier, and so on. So if you haven't, spearheaded or taken on doing a camp sort of thing, whether it's just a small overnight camp or a bigger camp, just jump in and do it, because that's the only way you're going to learn and figure out what you really want or need to do.
I think that's excellent advice. Does anybody else have a last word of wisdom? Okay.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Yes, thank you all. This was a great conversation.
Thanks to our guests, NAE4-HYDP President Craig Presar, Kim Fry, Tiana Garcia, Allen Taggart, and Travis Taylor. This has been a production of the NAE4-HYDP Western Region. The West is the best. Join us for our next episode.